5 seconds, here we go.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and guest do not necessarily reflect those of this station, the station's network, any other affiliates under this network, or its sponsors. Unless they do, and then we'll totally take credit for them, because this is radio, and that's how we roll. Want to know what's going on in Belvedere, Illinois, or around the world? Then tune to BNNSradio.com on your computer or your mobile device and give us a listen. That's BNNSradio.com.
Here we go.
News, sports, comedy, politics, everything you would expect in a morning show. Faster than the fastest nightmare. Brighter than the dullest dream.
Right here.
Right now. The Morning Show with Uncle Bill. Grab your coffee and hang on. For the next 2 hours, the unexpected will haunt you, entertain you, and drive you absolutely insane. So let's get started. Here's Uncle Bill.
Which no one else could give. Rich and poor, young and old, his arms are open to those who believe. In his name there is hope. In his name there is life. In his name there is power. In Jesus' name there's the answer. The God of heaven, the God of love, He has given up His Son so we can live from east to west.
Hey, good morning and welcome to the Morning Show with Uncle Bill right here live on BNNSradio.com. We are coming to you live from the studios here at 221 North Main Street, also the home of our Family of Faith First Presbyterian Church in Belvedere, Illinois. We are the big yellow building at the corner of Lincoln and Main Street with all the trees falling down around us and everything else falling apart here at our family. However, we're getting a new fresh coat of paint on the fellowship hall. Today, coming up, artificial intelligence. Is it taking over? Insurance. Woo-hoo! Weird. Climate change. Just some of the things we may get to today on the Wednesday edition of the Morning Show, coming up just as soon as we can.
In Jesus' name, there's the answer. In Jesus' name, there is hope. In Jesus' name, there is life.
Hey, give us a call at 815-544-2967. We'd love to hear your thoughts, views, and opinions. It's easy. Just dial 815-544-2967. Do it now. Come on, do it now!
All right, we are back here live in Belvedere, Illinois, where it's currently 67 degrees with a little bit of haze and overcast outside because we have a high percent of humidity, 87%. Winds are calm, and currently it's 87 or 67 degrees. And projected for today's activities, expect some thunderstorms. They're telling me that some could be severe, but they're going to be scattered. They're widely scattered, and winds are out of the west at 6 miles per hour. But there is a 50% chance of rainfall in north central Illinois, and so you just be cautious, be careful. And I don't see any warnings for today other than scattered thunderstorms. And they're not specific as to what area they're putting that on. It's just in the Belvedere area and Belvedere region that we could possibly have some thunder boomers in the area. So be prepared for that. Moralities, ethics, laws, customs, beliefs, doctrines. These are of trifling importance. All that matters is that the miraculous becomes the norm. Welcome to the morning show. I am your host, Bill Vallant, also known as Uncle Bill of BNNS Radio, where you can get real-time answers to all of your questions, whether it be news, sports, entertainment, whatever. We have the answers, and we do our very best, just like our disclaimer says. You know, these are just our opinions. These are just our comments. This is the way we see things. This is the way we have come up with answers through research and a lot of study, not something we just pull out of the air. And hopefully we are not reporting any fake news. However, there is some things out there that are fake news. There are some sites. I was reading a story this morning about, and I think I deleted it because it really wasn't relevant to this show, but there was a very popular pastor from a church, big church, and he was reported to have been offered a position to leave his church and for a $110 million contract to join Joel Osteen at his church. And he came over, and people picked up on it and really started to blast him because making a move for $110 million for 10 years. Of course, I'm sure that Mr. Olstein makes that kind of money. And but anyway, it turned out to be fake. He came on, said, I am not leaving my church. I have been offered nothing. And come to find out that this website that it came from is very well known. It's called Odd News. Let me get it up here for you. It's called well, let's see. I got it here. Anyway, the headlines is it's Odd News. Oddity Central is the name of the website, and they report a lot of fake stuff. So if you do ever run across this, collecting oddities, that is their main theme, and they're the ones that reported this pastor was joining. So anyway, you got to be careful of where you get your information. And we do our utmost here on BNNS Radio to give you the best possible information we can possibly dish out. And helping me to do all of that, because I don't like doing it alone. I have a very finely tuned staff that look up to me as if I am the king of Farouk, whatever. If you believe that, I have a bridge in London.
Big D, co-host on the morning show with Uncle Bill, right here on BNNS Radio. You'll wonder how you ever got along without him.
Ho-ee-oh, ho, Good morning, Uncle Bill. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
One of the
my friendship payments in the mail.
What's that?
My friendship payments in the mail.
Okay. One of the stories that I was reporting on this morning, or that I had, that's not the one I wanted. Give me a second here. One of the stories that I posted to you guys, if you got your email this morning and read it, well, that's not the one either. I don't know, maybe I didn't. Oh, no, I posted it on Facebook, and I don't know if it, well, let me see here. Live radio, folks, I'm hesitating. Attention, everyone. This is how I want to go out, so get out the dancing shoes and let's put on the Ritz. What do you think? Let me play just a little bit of this video to give you an idea. All right, I think you get the idea. That is a live video. You can go to the BNNS Radio Facebook page, and that video will come up, and you'll be able to watch it. It's funny because it comes out of Ghana, and it's something that, well, I almost sent it to one of my former employees, and it's a picture of dancing pallbearers. Now, picture in your mind, if you will. Let me ask you this, Craig. Have you ever been a pallbearer?
Several times.
And do you find the casket heavy, or what was your experience?
Well, it varies by who's doing it with you. Some people don't like to carry their own weight, so then you end up struggling. Other times, when I don't feel like carrying my weight, I don't struggle. No. I wouldn't do that. But it is true. You have to admit, some people don't want to carry their own weight, and then it's heavy.
Now, I want you to imagine, can you turn your volume up just a little bit, Craig? Just...
No,
but I want you to keep in mind and imagine what it's like, because the average number of pallbearers is 6. Sometimes they will have 8, and there's various ways that they can do the pallbearer part of your celebration, and that is 3 on each side, 1 on each end. But generally, the funeral director will be on the head end that's going to the grave, because they're the ones that has to push it up onto the rollers that sits over the grave. And so they usually, if somebody names you can have as many pallbearers as you want. There are 6 pallbearers, and the rest are honorary pallbearers, or alternates. If somebody should not be able to perform, then they would take over. Big D, have you ever been a pallbearer?
More times than I care to remember.
What was your experience? I mean, did you find the casket heavy, awkward? What was your experience?
Several times. Well, every time. I mean, the casket is heavy itself.
Okay.
But it's not awkward.
Okay. I find it very awkward. I find it very awkward and hard to carry. Just simply because you're trying to walk in step with 2 other guys on your side, or 2 other people on your side of the casket. Your steps cannot be big, and you can only carry with one hand.
But can I enter in?
Yeah.
What you said, you're trying to walk in step with other people.
Well, I don't mean
other people don't know that you need to try to combine your steps so that you're not kicking the person in front of you or getting kicked by the person behind you, especially when there's 4 on each side.
Well, I don't mean to insinuate that it has to be precision unless you're in the military, of course. But your step, I didn't mean that, but you're still trying to walk so that you're not walking over the heels of the person in front of you, and the distance between you, that could easily happen. And I've seen it happen. And so you knock the guy in front of you off balance, or the guy behind you knocks you off balance. Various things can happen. My point is this. The little video that I played in Ghana, they have gone to hiring dancing pallbearers. Now, I want you to visualize this in your mind, because if you have been a pallbearer, and you know what it's like to carry a casket. Now, it varies. If you get an extremely light person and or an extremely heavy person. Now, I have carried both. And really, there's not that much difference. Even if the person is a frail little old lady that has passed away, and she was your aunt, or she was a neighbor or something, and you were chosen to be a pallbearer, like Big D said, the casket is heavy. And of course, it depends on the casket that you buy as well, because there are heavier metalled, and whether or not it's got an adjustable spring mattress or frame for the mattress, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of variables. But the casket that they're carrying in this video is it looks to me in the video to be a high-end type casket. It's not just a wooden casket. It's not the kind that we normally... It's not the kind that we would normally associate. It's not the kind that we would normally associate with Ghana, or a impoverished country or nation where they just don't have the luxury of having the fancy schmancy caskets that we have today in our society. But this is a very nice metal casket. Now, can you picture putting those caskets on your shoulder and walking with it? Now, again, I'm dragging this out longer than I probably should, but I want you to get the full picture. If you were asked to be a pallbearer, Craig, Big D, if you were asked to be a pallbearer, could you put that casket up on your shoulder and walk in unison and take that casket to a grave?
Even when I was early 20s, and back then I was jogging and wrestling patients, in other words, I was in very good shape, I would not feel comfortable lifting it on my shoulder. Could I get it up there if we're all standing still? Yes. But getting it up there in unison with other people, and that, I wouldn't even want to attempt it.
D?
Oh, yeah, at one point in my life, yes. Because I've even put a couple of caskets up on fire trucks.
Oh, yeah. I don't have a problem with that. I've lifted them up on fire trucks. I've lifted them up in the beds of pickup trucks. You know, we've put them in a lot of unusual places. So just lifting them isn't the problem. I'm talking about resting a casket with the sharp edge, to me, a very sharp edge on your shoulder, and walking with it.
Yeah, that's just...
Now, keep in mind, both of your hands are free. You're not holding on to it in any way. It's just resting on your shoulder. Now, I want you to picture this in your mind. 6 guys doing this while singing and dancing. And at one point, they get down on the ground and crawl. And at one point, there are only 4 guys carrying the casket. So they switch around and they move in and out. So at one point, 4 men were carrying this casket. And at all during this whole video, they never once handle the casket by the handles. It's all on their shoulders. And they are dancing and singing. And as they're strolling through the streets, carrying and dancing and having a wonderful time performing, the crowd gets into it and they start dancing, and it really becomes a celebration. Now, I cannot picture anybody that I know would ever be able to do such a thing. So these 6, I think there's 8 of them altogether, but only 6 really do the work. It's an amazing video to watch because these people really enjoy what they're doing, and they're sending this person out from this life into the next in a joyous way by singing and dancing and carrying the casket on their shoulders.
Are you sure? Are you sure this isn't New Orleans?
No, you would think.
Yeah,
but it's a video shot in Ghana, and the person that Julian Medea verified, and for licensing permission to use, you have to contact somebody. So that's why I didn't play the whole video, because really it is a copyrighted video and shouldn't have been able to replay it.
See, have you already made your arrangements, Bill?
Most of them, yes. I have my casket. I have my burial plot. My burial plot's not going to require a stone because we're being buried in a crypt. And but yes, I've got everything purchased. The only thing that I'm leaving up to my family is the actual service itself.
See, in Heard County, when we have a funeral, we're hard pressed to find anybody young enough or without a walker or cane to be a pallbearer. For me personally, I've already gotten the necessary permits. I've already contacted guys at the quarry, and Baldwin will be supplying my casket. Ba-dum-ba. Boy, that one dropped like a lead elephant.
Well, I'm trying to.
What does Baldwin make?
Huh?
What does Baldwin make?
Caskets.
Piano cases.
Piano. Oh, the Baldwin piano. Okay.
And I got with the local quarry because when they dug my grave, I didn't want Lisa to get sued for strip mining.
Yeah. Well, I've seen guys twice your size. I have buried guys twice your size.
Do you know we actually had a guy, we used to go to EMS calls with him, bless his heart. He's a sweet guy. Really one of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet. But he was so big that literally they had to use a forklift to move him.
Not unusual.
I had never been to a funeral where the forklift driver was in a suit and tie. let me tell you, the company that supplied the forklift, they pressure washed it, they painted it, made it look nice, cleaned it. I mean, they really did. They were very respectful, and the guy that came to drive it showed up in a suit and tie.
If you were to look. And not many funeral homes would release this and allow, but they have devices that is designed specifically for the extreme cases. to get them in a casket. Caskets, when you have a person, pushing 600 pounds and so forth, all those caskets have to be made specifically, and that's why usually somebody that size will not be buried in the 3 to 4 day usual range, because a casket has to be built to their dimensions, and special cranes have to be used to lower them and hold them while they dress them, and so on and so forth. So,
all right,
it's quite an experience. But I just found it fascinating because I worked in the business for 11 years, and I just could not imagine anybody ever carrying a casket on their shoulders. Now, I know military do it all the time. You see a lot of military funerals, when they bring a casket out of the funeral home, they will put it on their shoulders. But you have to have 6 pallbearers that are equally in height and have been trained very diligently on unison to do this. Otherwise, one slip and the whole thing comes tumbling down. So, but anyway, I just wanted to address that because I found it very kind of comical in a way. Craig, they're saying that they're having a hard time hearing you. Our chat box is saying that. So, anyway, that was one event that I had that I thought was interesting, and I do want to bring up one story that we started. And Big D, I got a special story for you. Oh,
I'm ready.
I guarantee you're going to be moving.
Why is that?
You're going to be moving.
As in from where I live, or I'm gonna have to get up and run.
No, you're gonna get up and move. You're gonna pick up everything. You're gonna even if you have to walk away from everything you own, you're gonna move to this location.
Okay.
If I know you like I think I do, you're moving.
I told you I'm not coming to Belvedere.
No, you ain't going to Belvedere. You won't go to Belvedere. But you will be going to...
As he riffles through his stack of stuff.
I'm trying to see if in the story. But anyway, it's a story that comes out of the New York Post. So if that gives you any clue where you might be going. But I guarantee you're going to move. And I'll share that with you because I want to start off today's show by finishing off a story that we kind of touched on yesterday. And because of time, we never got to finish. And that is that Facebook has shut down an artificial intelligence experiment after 2 robots began talking in a language that only they could understand.
I heard about that. That's scary.
Well, that's what Michael said yesterday, because when I mentioned it just as he was leaving, he said that is actually scary. So the chat bots, as they're called, chat bots, Alice and Bob modified English to make it easier for them to communicate, creating sentences that were gibberish to those that were watching. A robot expert said the revelation that Facebook machines had spoken in their own language was exciting, but also incredibly scary. UK robotics professor Kevin Warwick said that this is an incredibly important milestone, but anyone who thinks this is not dangerous has got their head in the sand. We do not know what these bots are saying, and once you have a bot that has the ability to do something physically, particularly military bots, that could be pretty lethal.
Yeah.
If one says, well, why not do this? And the other says, yes, and it's a military bot, you have a serious situation on your hands. Smart devices right now have the ability to communicate, and although we think we can monitor them, we have no way of really knowing. Stephen Hawkins and I have been warning against the dangers of deferring to artificial intelligence. The Facebook incident echoes of the storyline to the movie The Terminator, in which an AI, or artificial intelligence system, which has developed self-awareness, wages a devastating war against humans. Facebook researchers in New York set up chatbots, Alice and Bob, in a bid to develop automated troubleshooters for social media networks. They were to speak in English as they worked out how to negotiate and trade hats, books, and balls, each of which were given a value. But they have since pulled this project because they saw the dangers of it. The robots rapidly modified the English using code words and repetitions to make conversation easier for themselves, creating a gibberish language that only they understood. Bob, I can, I, everything else. Alice, balls, have zero to me, to me, to me, to me, to me, to me, to Bob. You, I, everything else. Alice, balls have no ball, to me, to me, to me, to me, to me, to me. Researchers pulled the plug when they realized what was happening. British future technology expert Kate Adamson said it does feel a bit like the Terminator. This is happening everywhere. If you look at things like high-frequency trading in stock markets, there are algorithms that are doing the exact same thing. They have gained new knowledge and are not technically under control on a minute-by-minute basis. The level of complication artificial intelligence is capable of is way beyond what you and I would ever understand. Facebook said the experiment was halted because it was not what they set out to investigate. It said similar results had been seen by other tech firms. Scientists at Google Translate last year discovered the service had invented its own language. And tech guru Elon Musk recently warned that Facebook creator Mark Zuckerberg's understanding of artificial intelligence was very limited. Musk, who is 46 years old, said it poses a fundamental risk to human civilization.
He's absolutely correct.
Well, how can you argue?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you the one project that I haven't heard about for a while. I forget who's doing it, but what they're doing is they're taking like a 1 terabyte hard drive, and they're replicating one brain cell. And they're linking them together. And the last I heard, they had about over 1,000 of them linked together, and they had began to communicate. And I can't find anything on it right now.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that, in my opinion, they're going to keep this under wraps as much as they possibly can, because if anybody gets their hands on whatever programming technology or whatever it is that's controlling these artificial bots, and if they fall into the wrong hands, you think Watergate or Russian manipulation of our election was a disaster or something to be scary of? This has got my mind boggling.
Well,
to be honest with you.
here's the problem, and I know I've dealt with these groups long enough. Is that okay? Let's go back a few years. Do you remember cloning and all the uproar over that?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. And we finally decided, okay, for the time being, we're going to stop cloning. Do you honestly believe cloning research stopped?
Oh no, not at all.
Well,
same thing with stem cell research.
Well, we know for a fact that China has vigorously.
You have a text message.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We know that China has vigorously kept up with cloning technology. So yeah, Facebook may have pulled this AI project, but I'm not even talking about government. I'm not talking about Area 51. I'm not talking about Skunk Works. I'm talking about companies, corporations, laboratories down in the bowels and basements of buildings. They continue to do these researches because every company wants to be, when they can finally expose it to light, they want to be able to pounce right on it and be the first guy on the block with it. And that doesn't even, we can't even venture into what military applications this might have. And it's all going to fall apart because we have people in high places with both government and private sector who truly believe in their hearts that there is nothing they can't control. They truly believe they can control everything. We can create a human being to do our nastiest, dirtiest work, go out and kill people, and never have a minute's conscience about it. But we can control him. He'll never turn on us. Really? And we know this how?
Well, it always brings back to mind, to me, and Craig, I don't know if this affects you or not, because you and I have had this kind of conversations whenever we've gotten together as family. We've had these kind of conversations before, but this always brings back to mind, to me, is when I was a kid, we read a lot of comic books because we didn't have TV. We didn't have the influence of television, social media, and all those things outside the classroom that influenced our minds, our attitudes, our positions, so on and so forth. So comic books was a big thing for young people back in those days. And a lot of it was, 99% of it was all fictional stuff. It was Captain, can't think of it. Captain, I want to say video, and that's not right. But come on, help me in the chat box, guys. Captain. Oh, anyway, the fictional characters, Superman, the superheroes, and Mighty Mouse, and Donald Duck, and Dagwood, and on and on and on. But everything that we, and of course, a lot of us got into the scientific part of comic books.
Captain America?
Flash Gordon, I think, is the one I'm trying to think of. But what I'm trying to say is that, Dick Tracy was another one. For those of us kids that grew up wanting to be cops and so forth, Dick Tracy was one of our favorites. And everything that we saw from Flash Gordon to Dick Tracy to Superman was all fictional. But yet, with the exception of Superman, a lot of the stuff that we saw in Flash Gordon, stuff that we saw with Dick Tracy, stuff that we saw with a lot of the other fictional comics has come true, has come to fruition. We never thought in our wildest imagination that we would ever
You have a text message.
All right. That did it. You're going. Everything out there has, in our wildest imagination of all time, did we ever believe that we would ever fly to the moon, let alone have rocket ships or spacecraft that have traveled to Jupiter, to Mars, to Pluto, and so on and so forth. And yet today we're seeing that. When they made the movie Star Wars, when they made the movie and they had all those robots in the movie, when they did iRobots, they never dreamed that any of this would be reality. But in the movie iRobots, which is one of my favorites, here you have a whole army of robots that turn against all of humanity.
But you have to know that this was happening in the background, them trying to get the artificial intelligence.
Well, absolutely. Somebody had to be controlling it somewhere. Somebody has to develop it.
Well, see, herein lies the problem. You brought up a couple of movies. Let me bring up a couple of more. Remember the movie Universal Soldier?
Yeah.
Good example.
Yeah. And why did they turn on their creators? Because they got mistreated. Well, in iRobot, why did they turn on their creator? Because basically they felt mistreated.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing that you have to remember, and good example is in World War II. Hitler was trying to develop super soldiers, just like what you were talking about, but he was taking the genetics of gorillas and trying to mix them with mankind so that he could get the strength of the gorillas and the intelligence of a human. They went as far as to take gorilla and a human egg and combined them, and it was actually implanted into a female. And she agreed with this. And if memory serves me right, the egg lasted a little while, but not very. In my head, I'm thinking 2 or 3 months. But the point I'm trying to make is, as much as the scientific community is saying this is out of bounds, we will never do this. Well, realistically, you have to believe that artificial intelligence and the rules that the scientific community is coming up with right now, you have to believe that the lunatic in Korea is not going to listen to him. The lunatic in Iran is not going to listen to the scientific community. They're going to do whatever the heck they want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's why nanotechnology scares me to death.
Another good example.
Here's another example, and this isn't even computers, but to show you how things can go awry. Kurt Russell in the movie Soldier, do you remember that? They took kids from like age 5, and the military trained them their entire life to be the perfect soldier.
But D, isn't that what they're doing over in, what is it, Afghanistan? You know, they show pictures of young children carrying AK-47s.
Well, they're indoctrinating them. I don't know that they're training them to be the perfect soldier. They're just indoctrinating them to fight a war. These guys were actually taught not to have feelings. You don't question any order. And, you know, the mission is everything. And when the next batch came along, rather than to take care of these guys, what did they do? They stripped them of their weapons, made them do menial jobs, treated them like crap, essentially slaves. And then when that wasn't even useful to the military anymore, they just dumped them on a planet. And, you know, suddenly now they've got one of their own creations fighting back.
You just described a Star Trek episode.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. But, you know, that's the problem with all this new technology. It's not what it's designed to do is not what scares me. What scares me is and I'm sorry to use the word, it's the only thing I can think of, the bastardized uses.
That's the exact term that was in my head.
That people can use this technology for. You can take the most benign technology. I'll give a good example. Let's say they develop cold fusion. And they could create cold fusion in something the size of a 5-gallon bucket. And that would supply enough energy to run Las Vegas for years. I guarantee you, either before we saw it or simultaneously, the military would try to figure out military applications for that much energy.
The military has driven so much technology in this world. I firmly believe it's just exactly what you said, but it's probably simultaneous. While someone's trying to invent this stuff, the military's looking over their shoulder.
If we do something, if the military invents something, and there's a practical application for it, it's secondary. And it may or may not happen. This AI stuff that we're hearing about now, folks, That stuff been going on for years. And at levels far advanced of what Facebook is. I don't know for a fact. I'm not saying that, but I'm telling you, just from what I've seen with other things, I guarantee you that the military or the governments of the world are trying this on a much higher level. And what scares me is that they'll try to adapt this to quantum computers. That's what's scary, is they're actually starting to figure out quantum computers. They can't write an operating system much for it now, but give them time. They'll find some young genius to something will click, and some 16-year-old kid, and the next thing you know, they're going to have a working quantum computer. So this is stuff that we could look at, guys, for hours. And like I said, I can take the most benign idea and figure out some kind of military application for it. Now, whether it's practical or not, that's a different story. But, like I said, nanobots, think of the medical advancements nanobots could do for us. But Congress will come up with some way to, we have to do a lot more study on this, and it'll disappear, and the next thing you know, the military's using it for certain applications. And unfortunately, what they want to use it for is to kill people. And let's not even talk about what the CIA would use nanobots for. So, anyway, what else you got, Uncle Bill?
I'm having difficulties this morning with my broadcast computer. For some reason, it doesn't want to broadcast. It keeps going in and out, and it partially could be part of our Skype problem this morning too. So I'm writing to the TI, or the tech support, to have them check, because I keep getting an error message on my broadcaster computer. And
someone in the chat box said that they're having a tough time hearing me.
Yeah, and I think it's possibly part of the, when I recorded a show earlier this morning, I was having difficulty. It actually took over 2 minutes for the DAR to even kick into the record mode. So I think there's a issue with that. So what I would like to do, if you guys will bear with me here for a moment, I would like to just switch and take off on a short little intermission here while I finish this, and we'll be right back, because I got a couple cool, interesting stories we can talk about. We'll be right back.
Everyone's scrambling to find their place, trying to make a splash in this human race. And a race it is, or at least a dash. Everybody moving along so fast. Wanna be a part of the next big thing, to make our mark, to fan the flames. Stirring up dust on this road called life, 90 miles an hour with no end in sight. Don't let the world keep you from the truth. Would you slow it down? It's right in front of you. It's the little things that matter. It's the little things that shine, like a smiling face, a warm embrace, or a hand that holds on tight. we can steal a glimpse of heaven, all the wonders that it brings. Oh, a God so big, the love he gives is right here in the little things. You got that big promotion, now the hours never cease. Ignoring time for a chance to ride this American dream. So the bank account is growing, but the kids are growing too. And you realize, looking in their eyes, all they really want is you. Don't let this world keep you from the truth. Just slow it down, it's right in front of you. It's the little things that matter, it's the little things that shine. Like a smiling face, a warm embrace, or a hand that holds on tight. We can steal a glimpse of heaven, all the wonders that it brings. Oh, God so big, the love he gives is right here in the little things. And as you look back on your days, it's not about how much you earn, but the love you gave. Did you reach out to your neighbor? Did you help a child in need? Will the pages of your life be an example so that others see? It's the little things. It's the little things. It's the little things. It's the little things. It's the little things that matter. It's the little things that shine. Like a smiling face, a warm embrace, or a hand that holds on tight. We can steal a glimpse of heaven, all the wonders that it brings. Oh, God so big, the love he gives is right here in the little things. In the little things. In the little things. Little things. It's the little things. It's the little things. Little things.
All right, we're back, and I don't know for how long we'll be on the FM cycle because I don't know, for some reason we're having some technical issues with the FM broadcast side of our, it seems to be going out over the internet okay, at least to the chatters in the chat box. They're not having any issues with listening, but for some reason on my one computer here in the studio that broadcast over our FM transmitter doesn't seem to want to play my show. It'll play music fine, but it doesn't play the show. Anybody have any answers to that one? Anyway, I guess we got to think of our people that are with us live here anyway. All right, another couple stories. Big D, you said that I told you that you were going to be moving.
Yes.
Okay. Pack your bags, boy.
All right, where am I going?
Who said the New York Peep Show is dead? Grannies and other residents of a Lower East Side public housing building say that they have been getting an X-rated eyeful since Lan Schrager's fancy public hotel opened next door in June. And because its guests keep having sex in view of their homes. Guys are together, girls and girls are together. They don't even pull the shades down. Fumed Leonard Fernandez, 68, who said her grandkids visit her at 10 Stanton Street apartment several times a week. The Randy guests don't just get down in beds with the blinds open. Either they're doing it right up against the windows, and you see them having sex all the time, hands on the windows, And there was another Melissa Santos, a 26-year-old dental assistant who lives in Fernandez's building, says, "Not like I'm a peeping Tom, but from the corner of my eye, you can see this going on at least 4 times a week." Schrager's slick 28-story, 376-room Christie Street Inn promotes itself as a luxury for all, although rooms start at around $225 a night, with a rooftop bar that transforms into a late-night hotspot. A hotel is supposed to be more than just a place to sleep. It's supposed to make your heart beat faster, according to Schrager. And from what neighbors have witnessed, his patrons' pulses are racing, with one telling other tenants that they saw a guy pleasuring himself in the window. Fernandez's daughter, Christina, said she is worried that her mom's ticker is not going to survive the bawdy scenes playing outside of her window, along with the ruckus created by revelers who line up down the street to get into the bar. She doesn't even sleep. My mom is very, very upset. She has heart problems. At least 47 noise complaints have been lodged, with 311 against the hotel since it opened, according to city records. The neighbors say that they cannot always pull down their shades or their blinds because their windows are window air conditioners, and they are running during the summer months. And the city said they really can't do much about their complaints according to regulations and a legal expert. The whole question is whether it's going on in public. Because if you're in your house or something such as a hotel, you're safe, according to a Manhattan lawyer whose firm actually handles public lewdness cases.
Time out.
Time out.
So you're saying that as long as you're in a hotel room and there's a pane of glass between you and the outside world, she can just press everything right up against the glass and nobody can say a word to her?
Apparently, to a Manhattan lawyer who handles lewd cases, yes, sir. I don't agree with that, because I mean, I've arrested people in my career. I arrested people for doing what the gentleman was doing to please himself, standing in windows.
Can I jump in here?
Sure, absolutely.
There's been lawsuits on both sides of this in the news in the past. And there are points to be made for both sides of the issue. And let me attack one at a time. If I've mentioned on the show before that since the kids are gone, it's not uncommon for Debbie and I to walk around the house nude. When I come back from a shower after taking a very, very, very hot shower, which I like, I want to cool down, so I'll often just walk from the bathroom into the living room and sit in my chair and watch whatever Debbie's watching on television, just so I can cool down. Now, we keep our shades closed, but if you're outside the house and you look at just the right angle, you could probably peek in through the crack in the shade and see us sitting naked. So technically, the view of us is accessible to the public.
No, it's not.
No. Technically, this has been argued in court, Bill.
No,
this has been argued in court.
No.
Let me finish, okay? Technically, through that little bitty crack, our view is accessible to the public. And where this was argued was a guy was caught a peeping Tom, was caught doing exactly that. He was caught peering in through the window and watching. And his lawyer defended that, hey, they had their window open a crack so that someone could peek in and look at them. And then the other side of the case is a totally different case where the people argued that the people inside the house did exactly like Debbie and I do. That they walk around, if I remember right, they were actual nudists, but their argument was they kept their shades open. Their argument was that if we're inside our house, we have a right to privacy, and they are invading our privacy by looking in the house. And that case in particular was ruled in their favor, that when you are in your house, you are entitled to privacy.
Well, see, I would have to look at it like this. If you and Debbie are in your house, you got your windows drawn, and somebody has to walk up onto your property and find just the right angle to get a peek, they're working way too hard.
Okay, when you make that decision, D, you're going to have to say, okay, if your window is cracked 3 inches, then it's on them. What about if it's 4 inches? What about if it's 5 inches?
What I'm saying is,
if it's 6 inches? Who's going to make that decision of arguing your point? Who's going to make that decision of, okay, if it's closed this many inches, then they tried to block it. If it's closed a quarter of an inch different, do you see my point?
No, what I'm saying is blinds. Now, if you've got the window open, all right, that's different. But if you've got your blinds closed and there's just that little separation that they have to move around to get kind of a view of everything, that's a little bit different. Now, in this case, what Bill was talking about, I mean, I'm all for privacy if in your domicile. What goes on behind closed doors, so to speak, is your business. But if you're going to leave the curtains wide open and press your junk against the glass, no. Because now you're not trying to keep it in your domicile. You're trying to show the world.
Okay, what if you're 1 inch from the glass?
Doesn't matter. If you're in full...
What about if you're 12 feet from the glass?
If you're not making an attempt to make your home or residence private...
Remember, you're writing this law. You have to decide how many inches from the glass where it becomes that, okay, you're not trying to expose yourself. You need to write that.
If you're against the glass or you're 5-6 feet behind the glass, it doesn't matter. If you're exposing yourself to the outside world, then that's where it changes to me. Now, if you're in your home or your hotel room and you've got the curtains drawn and maybe there's just, somebody catches a glimpse of your bare behind, that's different. But from what Bill's saying is they're not even making an attempt to hide it. So if you're across the room or you're right up against the glass, then you're trying to expose yourself to the entire world.
I want to make clear that I'm agreeing with you 100%.
I understand. I mean, to a certain point, it's going to be if you really got down to nitpicky little things, it can be subjective.
And that's exactly what lawyers do.
But you can also take that little bit and say, well, she left that little bit of crack in there so that people would be enticed to come up and look.
No, now see, you guys are missing a lot here, and I'm speaking from former experience. When you're inside your home and you shut your drapes or blinds or whatever covering you have over your windows, or you build a privacy fence around your property, you have an expectation of privacy. Anybody that violates that by looking over the fence, flying a drone over the fence, sticking a mirror on a stick and holding it over the fence to see what's going on inside that privacy fence, is violating the law, the privacy law. If you pull the drapes in your house and you have an expectancy of having privacy, and somebody comes up and peeks through a crack, that is an intentional act to violate your privacy. Therefore, you're in violation. Now, what Craig is describing is strictly a ruling of a specific court, and you and I and all the rest of us have already discussed this many different times, that every state, every courtroom in the whole United States can rule on a case in a different fashion. It's all up to the judge, and now maybe the judge enjoys going over and watching the scenes that take place at this fancy hotel. Therefore, he may rule in favor because he wants to go to a peep show for free. But in another state, another town, 50 miles down the road to the next community, this would never be tolerated. And the hotel would be shut down, or the people that were exposing themselves in a public way in front of a window with no attempt to pull a curtain or a drape or something, or pressing their bodies, their naked bodies, up against the windows on purpose, would strictly be in violation of public indecency. And I agree with you, Craig. Anything can be argued in court. And it may have been this one particular case, or these few particular cases that you're talking about, they may have been ruled in a certain favor. But if it was appealed to a state court, I would bet you it would be reversed in an instant.
Well, I personally think that these folks that are facing this hotel are missing a business opportunity here.
Hey, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, okay, since the city doesn't seem to be able to do anything about it, since an attorney is here to argue that people have the right to do it, I'd get a permit, set up some tables, serve coffee and wine and, finger sandwiches or something, and, there's your seat. You can, for $25, you can occupy that seat for 1 hour.
The other thing that hasn't been mentioned here, there's a local radio show here, morning show. They're kind of like shock jocks. I'm gonna try to say this as tastefully as I can. They were discussing couples that like to swap, and there's a place in town that, back when they did this show anyway, that it was a hotel or a building or something like that was rented, and that's where couples went to swing, to swap partners and all that kind of stuff. Well, they sent their morning monkey. They sent the guy to go to this thing, to pay the money to get in, and when he come back, he said that the people that went and did this stuff, he says, are people you would never want to see naked. And it makes sense to me that most of the people in that hotel that Bill's talking about are people that you really don't want to watch them do their antics.
Then again, you might be surprised.
Well, apparently people are paying $225 a night and are lined up in the street waiting to get in.
Oh, wow. I missed that part.
Yeah, let's see. It's a 28th story. Let's see where the people are lined up on the sidewalk waiting. I don't know. It was just one of those interesting stories that, is this just another sign of the times? And I can't believe that an attorney would rule that, well, there ain't nothing we can do about it. And, of course, again, you're looking at New York. And isn't New York one of their sanctuary cities?
Yeah, and it's also, New York is also the state that is considering, and I'm not saying good, bad, or anything. They're considering allowing women to go topless in public.
There you go. So here you have a society of people that find these circumstances perfectly normal, perfectly natural, or whatever. And the people that live across from the hotel find it very distasteful. But my point is this also. The woman says, or the child says, I'm afraid for my grandma because she's got a weak heart, and you can see it out of the corner of your eye. Come on, pull the drapes. How many times have you ever had to pull your drapes in your house at night? Because like Craig says, maybe you want to walk through the house in your underwear, not necessarily naked, but you want to walk through the house, or you want to walk around in your underwear because it's a hot night. Your window air conditioner is not cooling off your apartment quite the way you like it and what have you. And so you pull your drapes and you hang them in such a way that they go around the air conditioner and you still get the benefit of the air, plus nobody can peek in your windows. I mean, people have to take their own precaution. If it's bothering you, shut your blinds. It's that simple. We have a person in our neighborhood that complains about the headlights of traffic coming down the street shines in his windows. And he doesn't like it. And he wants trees put up, a berm put up, so on and so forth. And he's been told, if you don't like them bright lights, pull your shades, pull your blinds. We see you got drapes on your windows. Pull your drapes, pull your shades. He says, I don't want them. I don't want to shut my drapes. Now, consider this. It's pitch black out, and he doesn't want to pull shades because he wants to be able to see out. What are you going to see? Darkness. So pull your shades, but he doesn't want to pull a shade. So who's at fault? The people that are driving down the street with their lights on, or the guy because he doesn't want to shut his blinds? So you have the same scenario in this situation. Who's at fault here? The people that stand in front of an open window or an exposed window flashing their bodies, and or the people that are being
flashed.
Yeah, the people that are watching it. I mean, if something like that was offensive to me, I would shut my blinds. It's that simple. And what goes on behind and if somebody wants to sneak up and peek into my window and find that little tiny crack, I guarantee you, if that were to happen in Belvedere, there would be no charges filed, other than the man peeping in the window would be arrested.
As it should be.
As a peeping Tom.
As it should be.
You know, and that brings up another interesting point is, what about strip clubs and nude beaches? Or not just nude beaches, nude areas.
In what fashion? What do you mean?
I mean, you know, it goes along with your argument. I have heard people want these things closed down because it's disgusting. Oh, my God.
Oh, now see, but you're talking about a different scenario. Just because you think it's disgusting, look at your theaters in some communities that show pornography. You don't have to go through those doors, but you want it shut down because it is, what's the word you used? Disgusting. So you got the same argument. Nobody said you have to go through that door. Nobody's outside pulling you in that door. And what goes on behind that door, people pay to go to. It's like watching adult channels on television, on cable. If you pay a subscription, you can watch whatever you want. You're not violating any laws.
Something you guys are skipping over here is different people have their own opinion of what is offensive.
Exactly.
If you notice over the years, you know, you mentioned nude beaches. Well, that got me thinking about, okay, what about normal beaches? And the people that say those are offensive, the people that are wearing the string bikinis and the thongs and etc. And we've all seen how little those things cover. And some people see that as not offensive at all. Some of it see it as very offensive. One of the latest trends are women that have got their cleavage that are covering, the only thing it's covering is a portion of the nipples. And the other thing that's very common right now are those knit pants that are so thin, they're like dark pantyhose, and that's it. They excuse the term, many of them show camel toe. Many of them show the line of the crack of their butt going up and down. Many people find that offensive. Other people say, why is it offensive? She's completely covered.
But see, the one thing you got to keep in mind, too, is we're talking about an entire different category of people. Because who finds it offensive? Usually the person over 55. Who finds it non-offensive? The person that is under 40. Because it's a new trend. And there's no doubt in my mind that maybe even in my lifetime, because those 35 and 40-year-olds within 10 years are going to be in the adult. But the young people that are graduating college today are eventually going to be our new lawmakers, our new courts, our new attorneys, so on and so forth. And I think they're going to rewrite what is acceptable and what is non-acceptable in society, and what we consider as senior citizens, so to speak, and fogies, is going to be the norm. So, again, quite possibly within our lifetime, we're going to see nudity more readily on TV. Look at whoever thought 5 years ago you would see women parading around on TV at prime time in their underwear, showing off Victoria's Secret intimate underwear. Whoever thought that TV would eventually be showing feminine products on primetime TV? And, you know, I mean, here you got little kids watching this. Mommy, what is that? What is that used for? You know, opens up a whole plethora of conversation. But times are changing. Attitudes are changing. What we find offensive and would never have dreamed, like Peggy says, we have to stay dressed around here in case of a fire.
Well,
and, I mean, you got to take a lot into consideration. And if you find it offensive, walk away, turn your head. I mean, but right now, the laws are written in such a way that it is public indecency to stand naked in front of your window. Now, in New York, maybe a little different, but here in Illinois and most states that I'm aware of, that it is illegal to stand nude in front of an open window.
Bill, you mentioned like 15, 20 minutes at the beginning of this conversation, you mentioned the drone thing. And there has already been a lawsuit over. There was a woman that was laying behind her privacy fence, and she was suntanning and had her top off, which for years women have found a way to do that. Well, the neighborhood kid had his drone and flew over and was watching her sunbathing like that. And she called the cops. Now I'm remembering exactly how this went down. Somehow the kid was called on it. And his father's defense was she shouldn't have been laying out like that, exposing herself in public. And she
wasn't in public.
She said exactly what you said. She was behind the privacy fence, and she had a reasonable assumption of privacy.
She was not in the public.
But the father's defense was anyone flying over that yard in a jet, an airplane, a helicopter would see the exact same thing my son saw. She's not in her house. She should not have assumed that she was in a private area. I don't remember how that case ended up. But those were the two arguments. Nowadays, drones are not very common. They're happening more and more, but they're not very common. In the future, they're going to be extremely common. So is it still safe to assume that if you're behind a privacy fence, you have a reasonable assumption that you're in private? Because that privacy fence is not tall enough anymore.
Well, it depends on who's flying the drone and for what purpose are they flying that drone.
Right now, I'm talking about in the future. As they become extremely common, is it no longer safe to assume that you're in privacy?
Again, it depends upon, it really depends upon who's flying that drone and for what purpose are they flying that drone. Same thing with an airplane. If an airplane flies over and they're at 2,000 feet, they're going to see very, very little because you're going to be just a little tiny speck, even at 2,000 feet.
Now, Bill, your buddy, when he took, I believe you remember, when we come up there, you had a buddy that had a pilot's license, and he gave my family a ride in the little plane, like 2 of us at a time or 3 of us at a time. And we flew over your house, and he tipped the wing so that Maureen could see that that was him up there. And we were low enough that if Maureen was laying there topless, I'd have seen everything.
We were flying right at the minimum level that which is allowed in this area.
But that's my point.
Which most aircraft won't fly.
Would she have the assumption? Would it have been fair for her to assume that she was in a private area when that plane flew over? Do you see what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah.
I guess I'm looking at as from a legal standpoint, and the shyster lawyers that are going to pull absolutely everything out of their hat. They're going to say, okay, at 100 feet, she can assume that she's private. At 101 feet, does she? You see what I mean?
Well, I think this is one of those situations where you're going to have to look at case law versus original law. As the original law was written, the intent was, of course, to provide people with the full expectation of privacy. However, there has been many case laws that have been changed and that determine that just what you said. Somebody with anybody at ground level, she has every expectation of privacy. But nobody really took into consideration flying over an open yard from the air. But for an airplane to be able to see anything in any great detail, well, of course, you've always got the probability of somebody taking a very high
altitude.
No, a lens on a camera that can zoom in.
Oh, high definition?
Yeah, a 2,000-foot lens that, well, you can zoom in at 2,000 feet. Well, they're doing it with satellites now. They have telescopes up there on satellites now that they can zoom right in on a backyard and so on and so forth. So there, and again, it reduces the option of, do you have a reasonable expectation of privacy? And here is the key word, is reasonable. Do you have a reasonable expectation of privacy?
Who decides reasonable?
And that's where it comes into court, because each side's going to have to determine what is reasonable and what is not reasonable.
What is offensive and what is not offensive?
Exactly.
The same thing.
Exactly.
Personally, I would have no problem going on a nude beach. I enjoy the feeling of being nude. But Debbie would never do it. I would like to go on a nude beach, not for the titillation of it, but for the free feeling of being with nature. And I don't see that as being offensive as long as it is private, where there's no children going to be around watching, and everyone that is on that beach is of the same mind that it is not offensive.
But there is going to be children on that beach. Because there are families that do include their children in their nudity, and it's perfectly acceptable to them.
I guess I don't see them the same thing as my grandchildren being exposed to it. And I see people that would see that nude beach as the same type of person that would peer in the crack of the window that we were talking about earlier. It comes down to who's offended, who a reasonable assumption of privacy.
See, that's my whole point. I mean, it comes down to who's offended. It usually seems to be. Well, let me just say this: there are people who, for centuries, doing in the nude was not considered anything vile or nasty. I mean, the Romans used to partake in the not gladiator games, but in the Olympic type sports. They were, for the most part, naked.
You're right. Now that you mention that, I remember learning that in school, that the original Olympics were done totally nude.
There are folks in countries around the world today that are all but essentially nude. They run around all day nude because making clothes is just too difficult.
You mentioned the Romans. Think about all of the statues from way back then that are totally nude. That was a very good point.
But you got to keep in mind, guys, that there are countries. Denmark, for one, is a country where pornography is very, very open and a very high productivity issue, moneymaker for that country. So other countries outside the United States have different laws, different expectations or acceptances, and so on and so forth. You got to remember, we're dealing in the United States where there are federal laws, or mostly state laws actually, that give people the reasonable expectation of privacy behind, what goes on behind closed doors and in privacy areas. And
let me throw this in there.
Go
ahead.
Make that your final comment, and then we're going to move on.
Ooh, it's a good point to make the final comment. Isn't it royally sad that we find nudity, breastfeeding, sex, that we are offended by it? It's commonplace to be offended by it, but it's perfectly acceptable for on prime time to have extremely gory deaths that they can show over and over with blood flying, disemboweling, and everything else, and that's perfectly fine.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
As long as you're dressed while that blood flies.
That's a good place to end it.
It is. You make a very good point. There are some things that you just are never going to understand. We can accept blood and guts and the gore and what was that police game? That video game Grand
Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto, very acceptable. Many parents let their kids play it. Shooting prostitutes, shooting cops, and all that kind of stuff. But yet, if they saw Daddy walk out of the bathroom in the nude, that would be considered very offensive. With that, we're going to move on. Big D, you talk about the South a lot because you're from the South. You have to get a better school system down there in Georgia. I'm just sorry. I'm sorry.
Buddy, did you hear the ring of common sense when the hammer struck the nail of stupidity? Bill, let me enlighten some people where you're going with this. In the South, I have not heard about this up north or out west, but here in Georgia, we have not had just one, but several school systems. Their accreditation got pulled.
Well, the case I'm referring to is in Atlanta. There was a woman at a gas station who was getting gas, and a guy walks up to her and wants her money. He asked her, do you have some change? She said, no, I don't. So he starts demanding other personal items, her wallet, cell phone, blah, blah, blah. And she ends up throwing all of her stuff in the car and walking away. Well, he calls her back, and he pulls out a handgun, and he points it at her. And because he is in her car attempting to steal the car, and he doesn't know how to get it started. He doesn't know how to start the car. So he points the gun at the woman and wants to know how to start the car. Well, apparently this car had some problems because you had to push it to get it started. And she explained that through the window, and she had to assist him get the car started, and he drove off. And they later found the car. But I just found this kind of ironic, the guy.
Now wait, you started this by preferencing in the South.
Well, it happened in Atlanta. That is the South.
No, Atlanta is its own country. It doesn't even belong to us.
Well, first of all, I didn't even know they made a car anymore that you could push to get it started.
Oh, buddy, you remember all those cars out where you lived and they got too old to repair and run?
Well, that was standard transmissions. Now everything is automatic.
Oh, are you kidding me? We've got half the cars around here got standard transmissions in them.
Well, there you go. See, I'm talking. You guys got to get up to date.
But you bring up that story though. I'm telling you, the show we've been watching, Live PD, they're all over the country, folks. Stupidity is not licensed just to the South. Oh, Lord, I'm going to tell you. In Arizona, they have a serious epidemic of people stuck on stupid. These cops write almost, what did one cop say? I think 1 in every 3 traffic stops, at least 1 in every 3 traffic stops, they're driving around. And this is not illegals or anything. This is U.S. citizens. No license or suspended license, no insurance. Half the time they don't even have a valid tag. It's incredible. Well, what are you driving around? Well, I needed to run to the store. Like somehow that magically makes it okay. Well, I was just running over to my mother's house. Oh my God, and some of the most ridiculous excuses they give. And then get upset because they get ticketed and their car gets towed.
That's the same mentality for handicap parking, though. Since I started using the handicap tag, I notice it a lot more. People will pull into and park in handicap, and if you call them on it, well, I was just going to be in there for a minute. I haven't been here long, did I? And my response is always, well, that is not for handicap and those that are going in for just a minute. But they'll stand there and argue their point. That's the same mentality of what you're talking about. I'm just going over to Mama's house.
You know what the new game is here on handicaps? Now the handicap people pull up behind them and lock their car.
Block them in.
And block them in and call the cops. Now, because in Georgia, there are a lot of things a police officer can't ticket on private property. But handicap parking is.
But see, here's the situation. The sad part of the whole handicap parking situation is it's sad. Because we all know, we will never deny that there are people who will take advantage of the handicap parking. In other words, I'm driving my car, and I have a handicapped person in my car who carries their handicap placard with them, and they will say, well, you can use the handicap zone. Here's my placard. They hang it on the windshield, and you can park close to the door. Rather than dropping that person off at the door or helping them into the building and then taking your car and parking it someplace else and then picking them up. But you take a person like Craig. Now, Craig has disabilities that requires him to use a motorized vehicle to get around. If he's going to spend, like when they went out this week or last week, but yet he still can walk a limited amount, right, Craig?
Yeah, I can go about 50 to 100 feet.
So if you park in a handicapped stall and people see you walk from that stall to a door, They're going to look at you like, hey, wait a minute, I don't see anything wrong with you.
Well, I walk that with a cane. You haven't seen me walk. It's been a while since you saw me walk. It's obvious that I need it.
Well, okay, maybe you were a bad example, but I have seen people that have a disease that prevents them from walking, COPD for one, prevents people from walking long distances. And people look at them and say, well, I don't see anything wrong with you. I don't know why you get to park in that stall. And, I mean, the only thing that they will accept as being handicapped is somebody that is in a wheelchair or walking like Craig with a walker or with a cane or motorized whatever. So we have to be really, really careful when we start making accusations about people. What irritates me about handicap parking stalls is if you are a driver and you are hauling a handicapped person around, in my opinion, that does not give you the right to park in a handicapped stall. Because your mom and I, Craig, your mom and I were at the Council Bluffs Mall one day, and I thought I was going to be a smart dude because I saw a woman park in a handicapped spot. And me, in my infinite wisdom, decided, well, I'm going to set her straight. And as she got out of her car and began to walk, I said, well, you don't look very handicapped to me. And she fired back at me, he's already inside. Meaning she dropped him off at the door, and there was a handicapped person in that vehicle, and she dropped him off at the door. And then I apologized and said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. But afterwards, when Donna and I, Craig's mom and I, were talking, then I got angry with myself because I felt that I was still correct. If you can drop that person off at the door and they can get inside the building, then there is no logical reason for you to take up a handicapped stall and take away a stall from somebody that really needs to get in from that point to point B. And whereas she could have parked in any other parking stall and walked to the car and then picked him up at the door just like she dropped him off. So you get my point here. It's another one of those double-edged sword situations.
Now Debbie has done that. I don't see a problem with it. But I do understand your logic. Debbie has dropped me off at the door. If even the handicap spot is too far, which it's surprising how many places will do that. They'll give you handicap, but it's the farthest parking spot from the door. And Debbie has dropped me off, and then she's parked at handicap, and then when we come out, if it's too far, then she'll go get the truck and come pick me up.
Yeah.
So I do understand your logic. I guess I never thought of it that way.
But I guess it just irritates me that some people take advantage of it when it's really not necessary. But then again, I try not to judge people anymore because you never know. And as we have said many times on this show, unless you know the rest of the story or the full story, quit passing judgment, because there may be a very logical reason and there may be a disease that you're unaware of that prevents this person who looks perfectly normal. We do not have to look like a person that has a debilitating illness in order to gain. If the state will give you a permanent handicap sticker, then there's a logical reason for you to be parking in that stall.
The only ones I'll call it is call on it is if they do not have a sticker or a license plate.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000% on that one.
Hey, can I leave y'all with it's not a handicap, but sometimes what you think is doing the right thing can turn out comical. Went out, was in town one day, and I pulled into a parking lot, and this guy had parked right in the middle of two spots. Now, normally that doesn't bother me because there's usually enough parking. But it just, for some reason this one day, it irritated me, and I'd stopped at this place to have lunch. So I pulled into the parking spot close enough to where most of my truck was in my spot, but he couldn't get between his car and my truck to get to the driver's door. And yes, it's going to dawn on you why this is funny. So I go in and go to have lunch, and I'm thinking, okay, he's going to be really hot when he comes out. Well, sure enough, you hear an announcement through the restaurant, would the owner of a pickup truck please come to the front door? So I did. And, this guy's just madder than a wet hen, and the manager's trying to calm him down. And he's demanding that I move my truck. So I said, okay, I made my point. So I started turning to go to my truck. Well, somebody else had this brilliant idea. And they had pulled in the parking space next to me, and I couldn't get to the passenger door or the driver's door. And this guy is standing in the middle of the parking lot, just jumping up and down and screaming and hollering and everything. So I just pulled my tailgate down and was sitting there on it. I said, well, when the guy who owns this car comes out, we'll all get to move our cars, won't we? And it dawned on me why this guy looked like such an idiot, standing in the middle of the parking lot, throwing a temper tantrum like a 3-year-old. Can somebody explain to me, now granted, he was he was next to the curb, but he's in the middle of two parking spots. Why couldn't he get in on the passenger side and back his car out? But he stood in the middle. All I was trying to do was inconvenience him to make him crawl across his car, right? Oh, no, he wasn't going to crawl across that seat. And me and the other guy that blocked me in, when he found out what he did, he was apologizing to me. But we stood there with the managers. This guy's driving off, giving us the finger and everything else. We're laughing. Because all he had to do was walk around, get in the passenger side, crank his car, and back up. That's all he had to do. So what I'd have done, I'd jumped in my truck on the passenger side, laughed about it, and
he calls bailouts for insurance companies.
Backed out.
He's referring to the payments the government makes to insurance companies to reduce the costs for...
I'm sorry, I opened a site that had an automatic starting video.
I was going to say, apparently Bill wants me to end my story.
No.
God, the first 5 or 8 times that happened years ago, yeah. But now I realize what it is. Hey, speaking of taxes, man, I just cannot. Illinois is Bill got up. But Craig, Illinois is the talk around here. Here is the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago are fixing to go financially belly up. They're losing people in droves. Folks, let me tell you something. I think well over 100,000 people have left the Chicago area in the state of Illinois. Now, when you lose 100,000, that's a pretty good chunk of your tax revenue. And so what is their idea to get themselves out of all this trouble? It's not to fix what caused the problem. They bumped taxes up in that state 35%. 35%. That was their big answer. And I'm sorry, folks, when you have financial problems, and this is what cracks me up, because if you mention this to a politician, they act like you are the dumbest person in the world. But if we ran our homes the way these politicians ran these cities, let me correct that statement. These liberal politicians, these progressive politicians, ran their cities and run their states. If we ran our homes like that, we'd all be living in cardboard boxes. It just blows my mind that Illinois would raise taxes 35% and refuse to give up programs that basically you could probably qualify are not working or worth the money spent on them. Absolutely no cutbacks. Bill, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they made any cuts, did they?
If you lead me, I'll follow you. Oh, yes, I've been watching you.
All right.
I need you to show me the way so I can live free. So I can live free. So I can live free as a leader.
Are you done talking?
I guess. All we could hear was music.
Well, I was just, that's the background intro that just says, end your conversation.
Oh, it was blowing me out over here.
Really?
Yep.
I barely got it on. Barely moving the needle.
Well, no, I was just talking about the state of Illinois and their taxes. They didn't even try to cut anything. They just raised taxes 35%. They're going to be back into the same boat next year that they're in this year. They may not even make it to next year because, like I said, a lot of people are leaving Illinois in the Chicago area. Well, listen.
Right.
Is it that time, Uncle Bill?
Yeah, we're just coming up on the tube. I just had all kinds of difficult problems here this morning.
It's live radio, baby.
I know. It's just been one of those days, one thing after another, and I just want to say thanks to everybody for being with us from Monday through Wednesday, and we'll be back again Monday with a whole new set of shows. Hopefully things will go better next week, and God bless you. God bless America. I hope your week goes well. I hope you have a wonderful time and enjoy the weekend coming up. And we'll come up with some new material for Monday. God bless you. God bless America. God loves you, always has, and always will. Don't ever forget that, Big D.
All right. This has been another 2 hours of the morning show. 2 hours of your life you'll never get back. That's right. Join us next week when we will find something new to talk about. On behalf of Uncle Bill, me, Big D, and our crack research staff, Craig, and hopefully Miss Liz will join us next week. Always a pleasure to have her. We'll find something else to talk about. Y'all take care. Remember, God loves you, so do we. Y'all be good. Bye-bye.
The BNNS Morning Show with Uncle Bill. He was once a banker but lost interest.
Very funny.
He was once addicted to soap, but he's clean now. He was once addicted to the hokey pokey, but he turned himself around.
Okay, that's enough now.
He used to be indecisive, but now he's not so sure.
Really, please stop.
He's only half ambidextrous.
Just get out.
He has the eye of the tiger and a lifetime ban from the zoo. Okay.
Security.
BNNS Radio. Stay tuned to BNNS Radio for more great shows like Cop Disclosure, The Morning Show with Uncle Bill, focused on mental health, and the ever-popular Belvedere Sports Huddle and Belvedere City Council. All here on BNNSradio.com and 87.9 on the FM dial. BNNS Radio. Radio of the future.